Hey, Jan. How are you
Hello.
doing?
Hello,
All right.
everybody.
First of all, thanks for taking time, and thanks for taking time to be part of this maintenance spotlight. So, like we mentioned, this is actually one of our first maintenance spotlight, purely based on the request from the community as well as maintainers, right? So, one of the things we learned over our journey in Aviyel was the fact that maintainers need to look up to people in terms of learn a lot of things, right? So, things like building a scalable product around a project, community, how to drive community engagement, right? So these are like core principles of Aviyel. And this also, like something we rested yesterday, right? I think one of the mission at Aviyel is the fact that we want to make sure people do open source to have a living around that, right? So we're building projects and communities for that matter. So once again, thanks for your time. I know you're super busy being a maintainer as well as CEO, so thanks for being part of this journey.
Oh, thanks a lot for inviting me. Very nice.
Fantastic. Cool. All right. So, uh, I think one of the first thing we should do, like, I mean, I'm sure actually a lot of people know about your journey and, the innate, where they started and where you guys are at. So if you can start with that, we can, like sort of, give the community in terms of your background and, what was the reason, and where are you guys right now? Okay.
Okay, so I've been currently about myself and about NNN and about the journey.
Yeah.
Okay, about myself, I'm Jan, founder and CEO of NNN, currently based in Berlin, Germany. My background is actually from the movie industry, so I did effects for movies for many years. That's also come back to that later about the story from NNN. I worked there for a few years. At some point, I left the movie industry. I started another startup, which was called Linkfish. It was in the bookmarking space. While working on that one, I started a side project, NNN, and that luckily went
Awesome.
quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, that pretty much captures that.
Yeah.
How big is the team right now?
Right now, we're around 20.
Oh wow, awesome. Yeah. And you still code, right?
I yeah, I shouldn't, and I don't really find time for it. But sometimes I really enjoy coding, and every time
Yeah.
I don't have internet access, like I'm in a plane or in a car or in a train, then I try to code something and try to push some stuff forward. So I still enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. That's one of the things. This was also a question, right? How do you manage being a CEO, as well as a maintainer of a project, right? What is that balance? And I mean,
Mhm.
is it a balance in that? Because I know when we speak to a lot of the maintainers, it's a tricky area, especially like when you scale, right? So
Mhm.
now that you have a company to run, how do you manage that bit?
I said I don't program much anymore, and there's
Okay,
luckily we have now more developers that do the work there. The main thing I do, I still not also don't review it that much anymore. Like somebody else does read the code, I still merge it, so I do a rough
got it.
look, see if it looks fine. Also, if there's like some open PRs that look simple enough, then I normally try to merge them and get them out. If at least if they're simple, if they need some deeper reviews, then somebody else does that. But normally I just try to look at them to make sure that they don't stay stalled too long. And yeah,
Got
like
it.
today I wanted to release a new version. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get to it, but that's how it's working. Generally, yeah, that it's not my job anymore to program. There's a lot
Yeah.
of other stuff I have to do. So it's definitely not much anymore.
Okay.
But I think it's still good to try to stay close to the code. I think like they have obviously a good understanding of the project, right? I have a good one right now. It's getting obviously as more and more people get added to the
Yeah.
team and more code get written. I obviously have a harder time over
Hmm.
as the time moves on. Like in the beginning, obviously I wrote everything myself, and now more and more code gets replaced. And at some point, it's probably a very good idea if I don't code anything at all anymore, because I probably make everything worse instead of better. So I really hope I get the exit there. But at the moment, I still try to code a little bit if I can, as long as I know it's positive for the project.
Got it. Got it. Cool. So, but like also dive more deeper into N8N. What is it, right? I mean, how did you? I mean, you mentioned about your journey, your last project, and like the last startup as well. So, how do you guys? And I mean, I'm sure actually people also have the question about. I know you wrote a blog about the name, but I think that would be helpful. Like, how do you actually like end up with this particular project and the name?
Okay. We can start with the name to
Sure.
get that out of the way.
You get it all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, that is, I'm a solo founder, so I had to try to be efficient with my time. I also know the name is important, but it's not the most important thing. So I was brainstorming for a good name. I had a few I really liked. None of the names that I liked were still
Domain.
free. So then I thought, okay, then one of the names that was still available was Nodemation, because it's node-based, it's using Node.js and automation. But it was very long and I didn't really like it. So I thought, okay, how can I fix that? And then I was lying in bed one night and I thought, okay, I can just do the same thing what Kubernetes is doing. So N, 8 letters, N, and that looks much better. Yeah. And so I took N@N, reserved the domains. They were all available, like at least io.com at least was not used by anybody. I think there was like a Belgian singer, which is called N@N, and he before, like if you type in the beginning, like 3 years ago, if you type in N@N, it was all about this Belgian singer. If you type now N@N, it's all about.
I didn't find it, so I was about to ask, like you were like the top of that bit.
Yeah, so at least that worked quite well for us.
Yeah,
and that's how the name originated. About the journey, as mentioned before, my background is actually from the movie industry. So I originally I was compositor, meaning it was my job to kind of combine the computer-generated images and the 3D images, combine them and kind of make them look good.
You were part of Disney, right? If I'm not wrong.
No, the last company I worked for was called Digital Domain.
Okay.
It was what I think Maleficent was the last movie I worked on, which was a Disney movie, yeah, but Disney did not do the effects themselves.
Oh wow.
And it was originally I was a compositor. Later I was a pipeline TD, which means it was my job to make the life of the artist more efficient. So obviously I had to program there and had to automate a lot of things. One problem I saw there is that there was a lot of potential to things that could have been automated, but a lot of stuff never got automated. Means we had a lot of smart people that waste a lot of time on doing something they shouldn't do. And they were always in this kind of begging position. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And I was always in a position of trying to say, no, I don't have time. Like there's like 5 fires burning there, and I literally cannot get to it. It was like not nice. Right? Yeah, it's sad because it's not a nice position for anybody to be in.
Yeah.
And all the tools in the Vivect space are all node based. So I thought, okay, I thought always that there must be a way, because in the end, I wrote the same stuff also multiple times. It was about publishing some things and getting some information. So there was nothing super complicated. So I also thought there should be a way for them to do it themselves. Anyway, I left the movie industry. I started another startup, Linkfish in the bookmarking space, and then some other stuff. But no matter what I did, I always had the same problem also there, that even though I knew how to program and how to do the work, I wasted a lot of time on this kind of boilerplate code. Okay, I don't know, get information from GitHub. So you have to research the APIs, you write a boilerplate code, you write a real code, you find a server, you upload it there, you get the SSL certificates, a domain. It was all super annoying.
Keep doing the same thing over and over, right?
Exactly, especially if this stuff has already been done a million times by a million different people.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, there must be a way to at least make this boilerplate code more efficient. Yeah. And then it looked like for projects, if I could find anything that would help me, that especially if I still want to maintain the customizability. Sadly, I did not find anything that worked there very well. So I just thought, okay, I brainstormed for probably roughly 3 weeks, thinking about how could the system work that would solve my problem there. And then I just started programming. It took probably, I think I started probably the first line of code I wrote probably at the beginning of 2018. It was in February, March, April, something like that.
Yeah.
I programmed there a while till June 2019, when I then felt confident enough that the project was kind of usable. Even though I still had some issues, I didn't have proper documentation. So I thought, okay, at least I can put it on GitHub, get some initial feedback, see what kind of problems people are having, and then I simply iterate from there. I put it on GitHub, I put it in alternative tool and Quora to get some inbound, a little bit inbound, but not too much. And it worked quite well. So I got some feedback, people started using it. It gave me some time to improve the documentation, fix some more bugs, fix the worst usability issues at least. And and then the beginning of October, I then launched a product hunt and Hacker News. And that worked out very well. People found it, and that they really liked it, enjoyed it, started to contribute. And that's when I also then got the emails from the first investors.
Yeah.
And yeah, we then closed. I talked with some of them. We finally closed the seed round. I think it was in April 2020. Finally,
Okay.
even though we signed the term sheet much earlier, there were some IP issues because I had it in like a private entity, and so I had to transfer it and things like that. And then the first team member started officially in April 2020.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah, it was a nice one. Yeah.
So I think I have to ask this question. Like, what was your first automation? Like, I know you actually built the background logic, but what was the first automation? What was the first integration you built onto N8?
The very first thing I was playing around with some binary data.
Okay.
Meaning like I was playing around with like image manipulation already. Like I wanted to just make sure that I have like something where I can use some JSON data and some binary data. So I just built a workflow that read like some data from Google Sheets. I think it was Google Sheets. Then the merge node was one of the very first ones that combined data from two different sheets and then created like cards and wrote like names on these cards, like for example, if they would write like birthday cards. I think it was the very first use case because I could test the basics there. That was the very first thing, even though it wasn't ever used in production. It was just this test workflow. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no. I mean, see, I think what interests me is the fact that you mentioned about product hunt and hackers use, and this sort of a recurring theme we hear with almost all the maintainers, especially the successful one, right? I mean, I have maintainers who said actually, they had multiple iteration of that, and the first one didn't work out, and the third one just took off, right? So and for every one of them, that's the moment, right? That's the moment actually you get recognition, you have community, and then it's just that the hockey stick growth, right? I mean, you get like inbound request in terms of we need that. What about this thing? And like that's crazy. I can totally see that journey for you as well.
Exactly, and I think they're amazing channels. Like both, like you still need some kind of luck factor, like especially on product hunt. If you don't have anybody who hunts you, that you got at the end of the landing page, it can be hard. Hack and use it also, like they said sometimes you have to post a few times till somebody actually likes it. I was lucky, like I was only launching on product hunt. I wanted to later launch in the evening on Hack and Use, but somebody else posted it, and so I just had to upvote it, and then it actually made it to the landing page. So I was quite lucky there. And they're both of them drive amazing traffic, and also like product hunt in the long term and good feedback.
Exactly, and so for you, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, and that's something I would like ask you, like more like a follow up. You have we have questions coming in, but we'll sort of catch up them until later. But the interesting thing about N8, it's sort of a crossover between business application as well as developer tool, right? And one of the things that actually we keep getting, and this is not from I mean, I'm sure this is something maintainers get a lot. If you're building a business application, open source business application, what is the differentiation? Why should why do you think that's going to dominate the next wave, right?
So I'm not sure I understood the question. But
no, I'm saying like you're building an open source business application, I mean, GTM is as open source, right? So unlike a developer tool where your predominant users are developers, yours can be a mix of business users as well as developers, right? So what is what is the advantage of taking the route of a open source for a business application?
I think it brings a lot of advantages. Like even though if not everybody is a developer, you still get other advantages that open source offers. Like it's obviously the thing that's probably the most people see in the beginning why they start to use open source tools, because they're freely available and cheap to use. They can extend them. They know that if they start to use them, they're not going to run into issues like with a proprietary project. Like at some point they pay like a lot of money, they cannot afford it anymore.
Right.
They know if something doesn't work, they can in the worst case go in themselves and can fix it. They know they maybe can just make it work for the use case. And I think also you have the advantage that if you have a tool that can be used also by technical people, or technical people like it, it's like maybe the IT team maybe brings it into a company, and then other people start using it. It kind of grows from there naturally. People also start to use it privately for their own personal use case, and they bring it in small and also large companies, even sometimes enterprise companies. Like we have just a case another week where it's like somebody said, I really used it, and personally I really liked it a lot. And then they were at work working for a quite large organization, and then they had like issues, and then that's brought it in there to solve that also the problems there. So I think
Got it.
there's a lot of advantages and brings, even though if your main user base is maybe not technical, which in our case we're lucky, like, or depending how you want to see it, but our users are normally also quite technical right now, even though in the long term we want to be less technical. Like we have our mission defined to give everybody who uses a computer technical superpowers, meaning like we also want to concentrate on this less technical people. But at the moment, they're for sure more technical than most ones. But over time, we try to make it easier accessible for everybody there.
Got it. So if I sort of capture it, it's your GTM, you able to like reach out to the technical folks, and they sort of iterating fast enough. You get a lot of feedback, and then the next iteration, once you make it much easier, you're also able to like bring more and more business users to the N8N world, right?
Yeah, and they also like you build a great community. Like the thing is like this developers normally, like if they like your project, they contribute, they tell you about bugs, they fix the bugs, like you get so much value. So I think there's like open source, in our case fair code, as we are not really OC approved open source, but brings a lot of advantages no matter what you're doing there.
Got it.
Also like a lot of trust.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, trust and transparency, right? I mean, the confidence is actually one of the major component for sure. So no, because this is something I keep getting from maintainers, and maintainers ask this question: hey, I got this VC ask me this question, like you're building a business application on open source, right? Why? I mean, what does that mean? What does I mean? They get if you're building a develop tool, or like like an infrastructure tool or security tool, but if the business application, what is that? What is the GTM? Having open source. So I think you pretty much captures that, and I think a lot of the listeners should also able to like relate to that bit. Cool, awesome. So the one thing we keep getting is around community. So you mentioned about the community bit, right? So I mean, can you just I know I spoke to your Devrel as well, but can you just run me through like what are the community interactions you guys run right now at N8N?
At the moment, we have, for example, community meetups that we do currently all 2 months. We have Discord and discourse channels where we interact with the community quite a lot. Obviously, other channels like Twitter, LinkedIn, we try to be active there.
Yeah,
we did not really do much like with external events, to be honest.
Okay.
It's maybe something or sponsorships or anything there. This maybe things is gonna evolve over time. But so was all more direct, to say like that. Like more
Got it. And what is it? What is the sort of? I mean, do you guys have any KPIs in terms of the community engagement? Like, do you guys track anything on that bit?
Yeah, we track everything we can, more or less. Like I said, for example, like I created like a long time in the very beginning of N8N, I created this workflow that runs once every day, that pulls information from like GitHub, the stars and the issues and the PRs and Twitter followers and LinkedIn and the forum users and stuff like that. So I save this every day, so we get a rough idea how that's doing. Also things like Docker pulls, but like the most of them are quite bad. Like for example, Docker pulls. Like we have some days we have between 20 and 50,000 pulls a day. Other days we have 500,000. It's like it's super volatile, so it's like nothing really. Probably one person at some point set something up wrong, and you get a lot of pulls. So it's all not really worth that much. So that's why what we try to track is really more or less the community growth. So like we are kind of. I'm not sure if people know Orbit Love. We use them, for example. Yeah. Because it pulls like information from a lot of different sources, GitHub, Twitter, and so on. And so that gives us a better understanding of the actual community size, as it also merges people. Like I said, if you have a profile on GitHub or Twitter, it merges on Twitter. It merges to one, so you get a much better understanding there. As the main thing is important for us right now is really that people know about us and use us. So that's why the community size is quite important for us. And obviously, we also have like our cloud version, so we have the normal SaaS metrics there, like revenue and churn. We have our embed model where we allow people to use our source code, so we check like obviously how much inbound interest we get, how many deals we sign, and things like that. But
Got it. So I'm assuming that is your North Star for your company, right? The ARR on the cloud.
No, adoption is the North Star for us.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
actually, like
That
the cloud revenue is currently not that important for us. The most important thing is really by far that people start to use us and we improve
understood.
the product. That's the most important
Understood.
things. I think it's actually the most important, should be the most important things for the most open source projects out there. It's
Is
like,
adoption.
yeah, because like the things you want the people to use you, like you couldn't, I think if you try to make too much money too soon, you maybe concentrate on the wrrong things. I think
Yeah.
the most thing you want that they have a great product. And
Right.
then with time you're able to make money with it. And I think it's the same with everything. You find VCs with a great product, not by trying to by creating pitch decks. I never had to create a pitch deck, for example. It's totally waste of time in the end. If you have a good product that people use, that's much better than wasting hours, or actually more days and weeks on creating a nice pitch deck and getting feedback there. And I said that better to invest the time in actually building a product and trying to get users and helping them.
So when you say you mentioned about the Docker pool, right? And you said actually that's not something. I mean, even that's adoption, right? So, but you said that's because that's varying a lot. You are not actually tracking that bit. So what would be like one or two metric you actually say, okay, this is actually, is it like PR pool, or like what is the one thing you look at and say, okay, this is working for us now?
I mean, I said you want, the problem with Docker pools is that everybody can do it a million times a day if they want to.
Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't say anything. So what you want is that advanced people do either they can only do one time, which could be they can give you a star only one time, they can follow you once, things like that. They're still very bad metrics, but at least they're kind of more meaningful. And other things you want to track is probably things like PRs and issues. Because if people like the more people use your product, the more issues they're gonna find. Means okay that means they have usage and they have to invest some big amount of times to actually create an issue. Like if you give a GitHub star, you click a button once. If you have an issue on GitHub, they have to first I said they have to use your product, and then it has to be, the problem has to be big enough, and the value they get out of it is big enough that they actually invest the time to actually create this GitHub issue. So that's why we also check that things. So like I said, currently we have a lot of different metrics we all look into, and we make sure that they're all going the right direction. But for sure, not anything that people can do a lot because they're really totally worthless.
What about telemetry, like heartbeat? Do you guys actually do any of those things?
We did not do that for a very, very long time. We actually just introduced it around a month ago or 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I think around a month ago. We realized that I always wanted to avoid it for a long time. Especially because I know
it's a tricky area to be.
Yeah, it's a really tricky thing. Now, also talk like it really depends also when you introduce it. I talk with, if you look at GitLab, they had a lot of backlash because I think they also did some. Yeah, it was not that great. I think they had also used like an external vendor, I think, to do it and things like that, and people didn't really like it. I talk with other open source projects. I don't name them right now. They simply had it in them from the beginning. You cannot even deactivate it, and people don't have a problem at all.
Right.
So how we did is when we introduced it, we wanted to make sure that we communicate why we want to do it, because like it really, right now we didn't have any idea how many people are using us. Do they get value out of it? What are they doing? What nodes do really provide value? Like we obviously like if you have, I don't know, a few hundred nodes, like where do you want to invest time making the nodes better if you don't know which? Yeah, exactly. And so we communicated very well. We asked for feedback from the community. We said very clearly what we are tracking. We added the option that everybody can deactivate it very easily, and then we introduced it. And it's already super helpful for us right now. Like we get a much better understanding of our users, what they're doing, and now we know much better what we should focus on. So it's like, I advise everybody to do it early rather than later, but also I would make sure that you really make sure you do it together with your community, with your community, because like if there are issues with it, if you don't just add it and don't tell anybody about it, that's gonna end very well.
And I'm assuming this is also anonymous, right? You are not tracking any of the stats, just the bare minimum stuff for you guys, right?
Yeah, like in our case, like everybody, when you start and the first time, it creates like a kind of a password that gets used to encrypt the credentials, and we kind of hash part of that password. We hash to create a unique ID for each user. And so like we don't know who is who, but at least we know if there's somebody who has like a 10 executions or a million executions, we know that, but we don't know like exactly who that person is at all.
Got
But
it.
that's it.
Got it.
We don't really need it. Again,
We don't
sometimes it
have
might
to.
be
Yeah,
helpful.
exactly. You don't have to,
Yeah.
right? The data you're capturing is predominantly to build a better product, right? So you don't need to actually know
Exactly.
who's using that, right?
Exactly.
No, because this is something. I mean, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, a lot of people, initially they don't have it, and I even spoke to one of the maintainer who mentioned like they have to build it, and he said actually if there is a one really good open source project which actually does telemetry anonymously, they want to like adopt it, right? But they could not find anything. So I'm assuming you guys build it out in house, right?
Yes, yeah, we use like we build it. What we are using is like a combination. Like we store everything in Postgres and use like
Okay.
Rudder stack in the back end, and also the front end SDK. I think which they actually forked from I forgot the name, but yeah, it's working quite well for us. And obviously it
Okay.
was quite some work also, but I think it's totally worth it because you really want to make sure that you focus on the right things and you actually provide value to your users.
Got it. Cool. I mean, now that actually this is something that I keep getting, especially around UX for open source projects, and you come from a design background, right? I mean, how do you? I mean, does it? Do you think there is a problem for? I mean, there's open source. I mean, there's a UX problem for open source, and I mean, how do you guys actually tackle that bit for you? Tackle for N8N?
Yeah, I think that open source is for sure not known for good designs. I think so. I think nobody can argue there. So it's obviously more known for the opposite. When I worked on N8N, originally I did the whole design myself. It
Okay.
was not the most amazing one, let's say like that. So, but I also knew like people can, like if you have a product which looks amazing, but it's totally shitty underneath, people start
Yeah.
to use it. If you have the most
Right.
amazing product, it looks very bad, people never gonna start to use it at all. So it means before I launched, I got in a designer on Fiverr. I think I paid
Okay.
like $250,
Oh wow.
250 euros. And they designed everything and they made it look good. So there's still a lot of room for improvement there. Even there is still now. And we are
Yeah.
actually to release the version we release today or tomorrow. This actually has the UI is gonna be slightly updated and
Oh,
makes
nice.
many things much clearer. But the base design is still the same. But it was
Got it.
like more than worth it. Like I advise everybody, like it does need a lot of money. Like the N8N logo got designed for $75 on Fiverr. That the whole
Wow.
design of the N8N was done for $250. So it's like it's not crazy expensive. I didn't have a lot of money back then. It's still deterred back then, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, if you want to build something seriously, at least invest a little bit money, and it
Sure.
pays off a lot. And I think it was very helpful for making N8N that successful in the beginning because it looked simply like a professional product, not like something. What it actually was, like some guy sitting on a kitchen table. It looked like something more professional, and that definitely did help very well there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I'm 100% on that bit. I mean, the first impression matters, right? So, I mean, especially, I mean, there are multiple options out there. When I mean, whatever solution you build, there are options, right? So they're always going to compare, hey, how does it look? And first impression matters, and UI UX definitely going to be one of the elements, right? So yeah, and you guys still actually, in terms of UI, right? I mean, if you get a PR from outside, like how do you guys manage that bit in terms of maintaining the core design principles of N8N, or you guys don't take any UI related PR from outside? Is the way you guys look at it?
We to be honest, like the most PRs we get are around nodes.
Okay, so integrations.
Which makes an idea. But I think it's what the most open source projects get. Like you don't get the most time we get more stuff around the corners, not really in the core of the product,
Got it.
which is actually a positive thing, not a negative one. I think in the most cases, because like you said, like you don't want that somebody does like rewrite your whole core,
Yeah,
invest like a lot of time, and then you have to say sorry, it's not
this won't
really where
work.
we want to go with the product, and then
Yeah,
you kind of feel very sorry because they did all the work for nothing. They're angry because they did it for nothing.
yeah.
All that value got there's no value got created, even though they invest so much time. So it's really bad. That's why it's nice for in our case where we have these nodes where people can create like very separate code that just can get loaded like that. Generally, we get some core contributions. For larger ones, we have to communicate it better. We normally ask, hey, can you please contact us first, that we make
Okay.
sure, tell us what you want to do. Then we check if it makes sense, if you want to go in that direction, and also like how we want to have it implemented to make sure that it's actually we can merge it.
Got it.
And then we do it like that. We did not get so many UI PRs, to be honest.
Okay.
For example, we got one that fixed like a bug we had since forever, which was great.
Okay.
But apart from that, we don't receive that many UI improvements, to be honest. Yeah, like
Got it. Got it.
we received one 2 weeks ago, which is great. One contributor edited updated the editor. We could not
Okay.
merge it yet, but stuff like that is great. Is we still have to again. He edited and then it works, but there's obviously work to be done internally now to think some more through. But at least we can use it as a base and can iterate on it. And it's
Got it.
already a big help for us because a lot of the initial issues are already solved.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense as well, because I think that, I mean, the UI element is actually, especially if he's not plugged into your design language, right? It will be very tricky. So just want, like, just get out that how you guys manage that bit. Cool. Awesome. So I think mostly I had like two more major chunks to clear out before we take questions from the audience. So one is around fundraising, right? So
Mhm.
when you mentioned about you got incoming requests, so did was there any KPIs or anything they were looking at? Like, how did the discussion sort of happen?
How discussions
So
started?
I mean,
Is that
yeah,
like it started that I launched a product, and then I think when they see a product they like and it gets a lot of interest on Product Hunt Hacker News, they normally reach out.
yeah,
So that worked quite well. And in that early stage, there's not much that you can show them.
okay,
It's like
got it.
all they see is like mainly that they see you were successful in Product Hunt Hacker News.
Yeah,
One
so there's
data
an
point, then
opportunity, and like there's like it's a bigger opportunity, and like yeah, got it. Cool,
yeah, and then
awesome.
they really just have to. I think that the other thing is like they obviously they still have to like you. They have to believe that you
Of
can
course,
build a great company out of it and things like that. But
yeah,
regarding KPIs, there's literally not much except GitHub stars and Hacker News and Product Hunt. That's all that was there. And then at
awesome.
that early stage is normally all they need. Yeah.
Got it. Oh, cool, awesome. And the last one is around licensing, right? So you guys
Mhm.
actually went with Fair Code. I mean, something you are also like very, very, deeply. I mean, working closely with the team, right? I mean, you are one of the major. I mean, two contributors, if I'm not wrong, right, for the
Mhm.
Fair
Mhm.
Code. So, what's the story, and I mean, why you guys actually went with that direction?
The story is maybe the very beginning, like when I started NetN, I was thinking a lot about the license. I thought I really liked open source, but I also
Yeah.
was aware of all the issues, especially around monetizing it, meaning like obviously if programmers are not cheap, I myself have to live also. So okay, how do I make sure that I can work on it full time? Um, what I saw with other projects is like if you create an open source project, you launch it, somebody likes it, they either again in the extreme case it could be AWS to charge for it, you never get a cent. Somebody else, if it could even be a small person that simply says, okay, I like it. They take the code, all the work they put into is creating like for example a hosted version, and
Yeah.
they charge for it. And they find a bug, they report it, I fix it, and I can at least stack on providing support for free,
Yeah.
and really never make a cent and nothing I can put back into the project. So I thought
Yeah.
it's not really in the interest of anybody. It's not in my interest,
Mm-hmm.
but especially it's not in the interest of the community, because the
Community.
problem is like if somebody else forks it and makes money with it, it always means the money goes not to the project, it goes to somewhere else and makes poof and it's gone. But you want
Yeah.
that it goes to the company behind the project, because they put the money they make back into the project and make it
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
for better support, documentation, and so on. So I thought, okay, how can I fix that problem? And like, in what ways are there? Like obviously, there's what a lot of open source companies do is they go down the open core route.
Mm-hmm.
What I never really liked, open core always feels like you make your product artificially worse to make money,
Yeah.
because you take away very important functionality that you can charge people for it.
Yeah.
And I always thought, okay, I
And it's
it's
really
very
hard
hard
to
to build.
maintain as well, right? It's really hard. You need like two different folks to actually maintain. I mean, I keep hearing from people like, once you take that journey, it's really hard, especially if you're a small team.
Yeah, I think it's that's a lot of complexity, but
Yeah.
also like just the pure mention of making a product worse than it has to be. It means like you people like good projects, and if you and it's get making a good project is very hard,
Yeah.
and like making it artificial worse means like you hamper your adoption like that already, and
Yeah.
the quality of people and the likelihood that people are gonna use it. And so that didn't seem like a good idea either. And then I looked online if what other companies did and what existed there, and at some point I found the Commons clause,
Yeah.
which did disallow that people commercialize the code.
Commercialization. Yep.
Yeah. So in the end, like nobody can create a SaaS solution, for example, things like that. I really liked the idea. So when I launched NetN,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote very clearly that it's Apache 2 with Commons clause. but there was no other term than open source. So I said, okay, and open source, I wrote it in quotes and explained that it's using a different license.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of a lot of heat for that. So if somebody is bored and type in like NetN and Gaslight, they find like a very long thread on GitHub regarding NetN using the term open source.
Yeah.
Because NetN was not OC approved open source.
Right.
Legally I can still call it open source because it's not that the term.
It's not a
people have
classic
used.
licensing. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the end, like it's not OC approved open source, and they obviously coined the term, so it was not totally correct, which what I was aware of. This where I even wrote about it in the FAQ and explained it why I did it, because that's what people know and what people expect from open source, that they can use it for free. But yeah, it did not work out very well. So yeah, so I got the issue that if somebody wants to read it, they can read through it, but because there was no other term, I did not really know what to do. If I remove open source, then people think it's a closed source project. And they don't know what to use.
And the
either.
code is out there
even,
on GitHub.
yeah, and the thing is, like, so I thought that it's even less exact than what I have right now.
Yeah.
So then I talked with some people regarding that. Also, with the president of the OC reached out. We tried to find a solution there. Sadly, it did not really work out as I hoped to, but they were quite nice. And so what I then came up with in the end is like, I thought, okay, if there's only open source and closed source, we simply need like something else there. Then the idea of fair code started, meaning like you have all the code freely available, everybody can use it, but what they cannot do is commercialize that. And that is what we count in as fair code. So meaning then we established the fair code term. Also, the other contributor you talked about, he was part of the conversation there. He also had thinking about that. We met one day when I was in San Francisco in a bar and talked about it. Then we created the text for the website and then launched it. And now trying to get more companies to adopt the fair code model. And luckily,
I was about to ask you that question. Like, yeah, I mean, do you have any companies like lined up who's using fair code now?
Yeah, I saw some. To be honest, I don't remember the names right now. There was like some IoT project, and there's some other ones that started to use it, and also some other ones that are actually fair code, but they don't call themselves fair code. So they have still a lot of work to be done there.
So just like this, for the maintenance, so for the audience, like, so what would be the difference between fair code and something like what Sentry has right now, right?
I think Sentry would be also fair code. Also, Elasticsearch is fair code, for example, and some other companies. Also, Confluent, so
Confluent,
Kafka would also be for.
But
also
I think even Elastic for that matter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, like one thing that's also very important to know for maintainers is that the license we have right now, Apache 2 with Commons clause, that is a bad idea for two reasons. One reason is it's not very clear because Commons clause kind of they disallow a lot of stuff. And then in the FAQ, they suddenly allow a lot of things again.
Okay.
So it's very confusing for people. The second one is the Apache does not really like it at all. They really dislike it a lot. That's why we're also in the progress right now creating our own license. So we also talk with Elasticsearch. They have the Elasticsearch community license 2.0, which is a really great license. It's not exactly what we needed, but they allowed us to use, or I think they allow everybody to use it as a base for their own license. So we're now working on top of that and change it to our needs. Yeah, exactly. And then we're currently working on it, and I hope at some point in the next 1 or 2 months we can then release that new version. It's still actually going to be exactly the same as before. Like the people can still do the same or cannot do the same, but it's just using now an own license that doesn't use Apache anymore. To make sure that we don't run into any problems with them, and to make it much clearer for our users, because then we have very clearly defined in the license what is allowed, and also in the FAQ what they can do and what they cannot do. So I advise everybody, if they want to go the same route, look at the Confluent the license from Confluent, from Elasticsearch. Yeah, there's also another one out there from Kevin Mitchell, I think he's called. He has this called Polyform project. It has also some great licenses there. I think they're not fair code compatible, but maybe depending what people want to do, it could also work quite well. But they're good alternatives to open source licenses out there, depending on your use case. Like fair code doesn't work for everybody. Like for us, it works very well. Other, if you have like a low level project, it's maybe not the best thing there, but they really have to see it. You have to think about how do you want to make money, and think about the right license there, and not just make it open source because you think you have to.
Yeah, no, I mean the whole idea about like, I mean, if you're gonna like monetize on open source the core product, I mean, thinking it upfront helps, right? I mean, and that was the whole, I mean, like, no, I mean, front loading it as soon as possible before actually having a lot of contribution and then changing it. It's very tricky.
Yeah, I
And
think like
backlash
that
as well.
exactly. And the thing is, like, I was very upfront about it. I said I don't want to be open source. Like, I don't want to be open OC approved open source.
Yeah.
I wrote an FAQ why and why I chose it. And then people say some people hated it and said, okay, that's not fair. Why is it fair that I contribute to your source code and only you can commercialize it?
Yeah.
But then I have to say, like, what's that? Like, normally I ask, do you want to commercialize it? They say no. It's okay. Okay, so then what you then ask him, well, that's why should you be able to commercialize it but not Amazon? And said, do you really want that Amazon is making the money instead of the company behind it? And then
Right.
normally people understand it quite well.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that was
No,
nothing.
I think for a lot of people actually it's a classic. It's a sort of a, like, I mean, like the way they imagine the open source and like the way they evolving, right? I mean, there is always two fraction on that. I mean, somebody actually stay back and like just do that, and somebody actually like split and like understand what the real world scenario goes and like not just accordingly. So I think that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you really want that the project has money. Like, the people are not cheap. Like, if you want to have a great project, you have to have
Yeah.
people working on it. And I think that what was very important for me was that people can use it for free as long as they want. Like,
Yeah.
they can run it forever internally. But the only time we charge money is somebody says, hey, we want to use our code. We have, for example, a CRM tool. We want to add automation capabilities.
Right.
Normally, if it would be open source, they would simply copy our source code and charge money for it. It would be it.
Yeah.
Like this, they have to talk with us to get a special license agreement. We normally work on the revenue share, meaning they only have to pay
Got
if
it.
they make money. So meaning, like,
Got it.
we have this nice win-win situation. They don't have any risk. If they don't
Okay.
make money, they don't pay anything. And if they
Got
grow,
it.
we grow. And I think it's a very nice symbiotic relationship there that we are able
So it's
to
more like a
achieve with our
reseller.
partners there.
It's more like a reseller agreement, but only the profit share, right?
Yeah, and then, like, it's partly, it has a reseller part in it, but in the end, what the agreement says is that, like, you can really use all of our code. You can use as much asset as you want.
Got
You
it.
can change whatever you want, make it work for your use case. You can use all the updates that come out, but yeah, you always pay us our fair share there. And again,
Got
like,
it.
it's actually also in their interest because, yeah, obviously, if they
The
depend
project
on the
had to grow,
project, they
keep
want.
growing, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is, and I think that they pay, they get also something back because the project evolves and they get value out of it. So it's like, I think it's working quite well there, and people like it, to be honest.
No, see, I think that's one of the things we keep like asking the maintenance sector. I mean to amplify the voice, like maintaining open source project it's very very expensive. People think it's sort of like once it's out there, like it's just gonna like work. It's not, and you have to like it's an animal, you have to feed it, right? And it had to grow. So I mean people sort of underestimate that maintenance bit. Building it out, yeah, they see value, but maintenance is actually super expensive as building out, right? So people don't see that thing.
I think the problem is with open source, people always think, oh, nice, you get all of the people working for free for you. What they don't understand, if somebody opens a PR, that it sounds like, first night it sounds great because somebody gave you code for free,
right?
But you still have to realize that you first, like, you have to review that code. That's sometimes a lot of work. Then you have to fix it because it's very often not up to standard. And the third one is, like, very often it is code that's maybe not really on your roadmap right now. So like you have worked something you did not have planned maybe for a year. Somebody created a PR and you have to kind of do work you didn't really want to do at that point because somebody else did it. So it's like it's not all always amazing. Like, I think it's great to having people to do that.
Yeah.
But it's not always like, hey, you get work for free. It's actually quite a lot of work. And right now, to be honest, we're not doing a great job there. Like, we have way too many open PRs because we simply don't find enough time to work on them. A lot of the PRs are our own ones, but there's a lot of community contributions we really want to get. That's why we're also hiring much more people to make sure that we can merge much faster, do a better job in the future. But it's a lot of work. Also the issues and stuff like that. Again, issues are great. People help find problems. You don't have to pay other people, testers externally to find the problems. It's all great. But if somebody reports it, they obviously want to have it fixed. So so like sometimes this edge case things are quite complicated to fix, and then you have to again to invest resources there. So it's like
no, please finish off. Yeah, please finish off. All right. No, I'm just saying. I was just adding to what you mentioned. Like the funny thing about a closed or proprietary project versus open source. I mean, you still have a lot of issues out there for a closed source thing, but it's not public, right? But on the other hand, open source is completely out there, and people say, hey, there are like issues, but the other things also have issues. It's just that actually it's behind the wall. Nobody's going to say that. It's a complete.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, just like I said, it can be good or bad. And I think I said I love the open source community, and our community is especially great. Like we have so many amazing contributors, so many people in our community that actually it seems like they do something that's more work for us than they do for the company they actually work for. It's really amazing. Like we have one very early contributor, Ricardo. He worked like full time for NNN for like 5 months, I guess, and created like I think 50 nodes for free just because he liked the project so much. Till I had money to actually hire him. And he is with NNN now. And also another community member, John, who's in the community amazing and answers all questions super fast. We also hope we hire him soon.
Yeah, no, that's actually one of the questions. That's actually one of the questions that actually came in. What role did you hire for the first outside of engineering?
The first one officially I hired was Ricardo. Like he worked already for NNN for free. I didn't have money to pay him, so as soon as I had money, I hired him, and he helped out with node development and community support.
Okay.
And yeah.
No, but was he engineer? But what is the engineer or like outside?
He was a developer, yeah.
Okay, no, the question is actually, what was the first hire outside of engineering?
Actually, in the first middle of April, multiple people started. The first three ones were not engineers.
Okay.
One was the head of DevRel.
Okay.
Super important. Like he worked there, obviously. Different, especially worked a lot on documentation and things like that.
Yeah.
Another one was head of design.
Okay.
And yeah, he did design, but a lot of general work also. And a super important one, which I advise everybody that is a non-technical founder, was head of operations. And she is taking care of everything that I would probably forget and would do wrong. And that's just super amazing to hire somebody like that. Everybody, when they talk with founders that are technical, they don't have a non-technical co-founder, tell them, get somebody who's not technical, who can think about all the stuff you're probably going to be horrible in. And that's was, as I said, super important.
I mean, getting the operation hire early on is very important because that takes out the mind share, right? I mean, the thing about, I mean, for me, being a founder, like the context switching, right? That's very expensive. So great to capture same image.
Yeah, but it's not just the context switching. There's also other things like, for example, I done onboarding. I think I got the first employees. I got a very bad onboarding experience, if there was even an onboarding. But she just makes sure that everybody's been taken care of there, and the things about creating the right job posts and taking care of GDPR, and like literally everything that is not technical. It's just amazing to have somebody who is smart and he can take care of that. And you just know, okay, she says she does it great, and that's it. You save the context switching, but you also know that somebody who has that not technical brain is taking care of this not technical issues, and they do an amazing job there.
Definitely, yeah, awesome. So we ran a small type form for questions. So one question we got: what is the most problematic thing about being a company based on open source project? No, it's not there. It's just one of the, So it's what. Yeah, the last one, right?
Okay, let me check the chat.
No, it's on the chat. It's the doc we shared yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. It's not in the, okay.
It's in the bottom.
Okay. I think if it's like you have to be very careful how you monetize your product. I think it's like if you're open source, you can do it. Obviously, I described earlier. You can do it in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make sure that you find a way to make money by still making sure you provide the best value for your community, and that actually works very well for how they're using the product. That if you again use open core and you take away the most important functionality because you have to make money somehow, but then your product becomes unusable. So like monetization is really one of the hardest parts there, I think. That you have to think of very, very, very properly through very early on. maybe it's going to turn out to be wrong. Luckily, to be honest, like the ways I want to monetize NetN, all of them seem to be working quite well for now, but we're going to see in the long term how it's going to play out there.
No, I mean, so I see what I like about NetN, it's such a huge opportunity, right? So definitely, I think coming from open source makes more and more people actually adopt it in the stack, and they can actually always like go for paid features, like SaaS or like. So I think I definitely think like it's going to be a great project. Other thing, when and how one should follow up on submitting a PR to a large open source project.
Yeah, that's a good question. As I mentioned before, we're doing a very bad job right now, and I'm really sorry for that. So very sorry for everybody who opened the PR. We didn't merge it yet. What I will probably do is probably after a week, if I did not hear back, I will probably just ask if there's anything missing, if there's anything that I can help to move it forward with, something across that lines, because then you say like, here, you want to obviously want to help to make sure you're very interested in doing it. There's also a nice way, better than asking why didn't it get merged, because the answer is very obvious. Like, we really would like to do it, but we don't have enough resources.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. So I think coming back to the questions here. So what's your personal favorite open source project?
So what was the question?
What is your personal favorite open source project?
What's one of my favorite open source projects?
Yeah.
That's not always the approved open source anymore, but I really still like Elasticsearch and Kibana. I think they're really amazing. They're just great. Like, I used them so much in the past, so really like them. Yeah, I think there's a lot of other projects I like, but I think what I think is great for them, I think they were open source. They had some issues. Like, I think they did a lot of stuff right generally with the company. What they're doing generally is I'm a really big fan of the company and of the projects.
Got it. Cool. We have a question from Sleepwalker talking about what are the upcoming features in your roadmap people to watch out to.
One of the most important ones and the most asked for feature is user management. Like, right now, NetN is not great usable in bigger setups, because there's one user or no user, depending how you want to see. They can do everything, so you can really not work with multiple people. If I add the credentials for my Gmail account, everybody who has access to NetN could read my emails, so that's really bad and horrible. That's why we are working on user management right now, to make sure that people can have like one instance with multiple users. Then they can share workflows, they can share the credentials, they can say, okay, use the credentials but not change them or not see them and stuff like that. We have multiple iterations planned. The first one, the first basic version, will hopefully be released I hope in the next few weeks. And then we have multiple steps afterwards. I think that's one of the main things there. We have a lot of UI improvements. Like I said, one we're going to launch today or tomorrow, and it's going to look much more professional, nicer, and slick, and has a lot of UI improvements to make it easier to get started and also make it clear what's happening. Yeah. We also still wanted to launch like one thing we're also working right now is to making it easier and more efficient to create nodes. To make sure that the nodes are more or less code-free. That is quite important. Then there's updates to the parameters, how you select data. Also, binary data is another important one, that you can use large amounts of binary data. That's also something that should be released in the next few weeks. So there's a lot of stuff. Also allowing people to load workflows that other people shared in the UI. There's like a lot of stuff.
Like receipts, like receipts sort of thing, right?
Sorry?
Like recipes, right? Different like recipes you actually can automate.
Yeah, exactly. Recipes, yeah. So there's a lot of big and smaller things in our roadmap there, and a lot of things are finally getting ready to be released next week, which is quite exciting.
Awesome. Yeah. So we have a question from Lucas. I think very similar when we launch your user management and multi-tenancy. So I think you pretty much answered that question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So what happens when you spend like half a year making a perfect project, then doesn't get users? Should we just release the beta version of your application and then take the next steps and look for adoption?
Making a version, then it is. Yeah, and I think that with the not get much users part, I think like there's one project out there that's called No Code DB.
Yeah.
I think they're around since like a few years.
Yep.
The first years they did not get a lot of adoption, and then suddenly it took off like crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, so you don't really know what. So I think you can still we will just keep on iterating. I think what the most important thing is really just talk with users, like with the users you have, and the
Yeah.
users that churn, and make sure like that you find out why people don't start using it. And so because maybe there's something very simple and you can fix it, but yeah, I would probably not give up, and I would just will for sure try to release as early as possible. Like I said, in the end, like NN was very imperfect when I probably also could have launched for sure earlier, and there was like a lot of features that I still wanted to add. I thought they're super essential, and
Yep.
in the end, I was like, hey, screw it, I gonna do it at a later point. And actually, many of the features are still not released now, and not many people are missing it. So it's like very often you put a lot of work into something that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
releasing earlier is good, but it should obviously not be super buggy that the people still feel like they can use it. I would still invest some time, like we mentioned earlier, in the UI, that it looks like a professional project that's usable and people want to use. So I would probably not release it before that's done, but then release it, see what people are doing, make sure you have proper documentation, and you provide amazing support. And really make sure that you have, like when I launched NN, I had at least a basic website ready. I had this discuss set up as a forum, and it allowed me to make sure that I can give support, just answer every question one time and at a million times. Like I tell everybody, please don't add any real-time communication channels because that's just such a time drain. You're never going to get to anything because you answer the same question a million times. So I would really add discuss there. Maybe if you want in the very early beginning, if we don't have many users, you can maybe have a Slack channel because you want to get the direct support there. But if it looks like it's going to be successful, really able to get rid of it as fast as possible because you're never going to get any work done anymore ever. So yeah.
Yeah, so Anish, just to add, I hear the same story from different maintainers, like Jan mentioned about NocoDB. There will be multiple iteration. It can be like, I mean, you might be targeting the wrong set of people, or the messaging is really hard. So, like I'll iterate on multiple aspects of that. And, like you might just one day, like your post just takes off on Hacker News and, you have a very successful project. So yeah, it won't really happen overnight. So as simple as that.
Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, like, just also Hacker News, like I said, you post it, maybe nobody upvotes it. I think they're totally okay if you post stuff multiple times. I think there's some things that you had post 3-4 times, and that's the fourth time they get some traction. So just do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
So in the worst case, it's going to take off. Like if nobody sees it anyway, nobody's going to complain.
Exactly.
It's going to take off. Then who cares? Yeah.
Right.
And
no,
product hunt, like if you launch like a product hunt, make really sure you get somebody who hunts you, that it directly ends up on the landing page, because then you get great traction for sure, and a lot of people seeing you. Definitely investing. I would look up. There are some people out there that do it. For Chris Messina, they did a long time, for example. You could just fill a form there. I think he's not doing it anymore, but there are a lot of punters out there that can help you there doing it.
Definitely. Awesome. So we have Raketa talking about, I want to express my gratitude to Jan. I began to spend so much time in a native interface that is became second Gmail or Google table for me.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, this is the best comment. Great product, great promise. Give. I don't think there is any. It's just a gratitude. Hey, great work. Just keep doing that. That's pretty much it, I guess. We have Victor here. Hey, hello, Jan. Awesome work on it. My question is, how did you balance your open source work with your full-time job? Yeah, this keep getting.
I think that the secret is not having a full-time job. Like what I did is, like I have a wife and 2 children, so I definitely needed some money. So I cannot just work. Like it's easier if you're single and live with your parents. I might have still the advantage. I was living in Berlin, where the living costs are still quite reasonable. So what I did, I worked 2-3 days a week for different startup, normally 10 hours a day, that I get like some 30 hours at least in a week, that allowed me to earn enough money to make sure they can eat and sleep somewhere. And then the rest of the time I could then invest in my own projects, like in this case, NN.
And how much time? How much time did you do that? How much time did you do that for?
For how long? For probably the whole. I already started it before. Like I said I was working for a different startup, Linkfish. And I did it all together like for three years, I guess.
Okay.
So
Got
you're
it.
not going to be rich. Like we didn't for sure didn't have the richest life back then, and we couldn't do a lot of things, but no fancy dinners or anything. But like if it's what you care about, it's going to
It's
be worth it.
satisfying.
So really make sure you get a 3 day a week job. Some people are freelancing, but I would not. Freelancing, the bad thing is like you always have to look for new jobs. They're going to come
Yeah,
back. It's going to be very
it's keep
stressful.
a recurring
So
gig. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So really take one company, say from the beginning, 2 3 days. If you're a developer, they're still gonna do it because they look for good developers like crazy. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a good deal for both sides. I didn't charge crazy amounts of money because I thought it was fair like that, and it worked out very well.
Got it. Cool. I think that's pretty much. I think I really enjoyed the session. Thanks for your time. I know. I think we got one more question. Yeah. I actually had another question. So what happens when you got 100 project ideas? Which one you should go execute? Then how do you get a lot of projects? How while managing other project stuff, mainly school and studies for me. Uh,
Okay. Yeah, with 100 projects, I think like there's just to be hopefully still one out there you care more about than others. So I will probably work on that one. If you have still like 5 that you really want to work on, then I really would just start to talk with people. Like I said, to
yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
it's first it's a problem you're actually solving nothing that sounds cool, but it's not actually a problem. Make sure it's a problem you're solving that you have yourself, because
Yep.
then you can better test with yourself all the time, and you know what's wrong, and you can iterate much faster if you always have to ask somebody else. Again, like if you still have a lot of projects, talk with other people,
Yeah.
see what other problems they are having, and if it solves also their problem, and then I would go with that one.
Especially Anish, you're in school, right? That's a great place to find like-minded people. So like, I mean, just pull them in, and like, I mean, I see, lot of times actually we the maintenance, the journey starts when you're at school, like, because you find a lot of like-minded people, figure out who can work with, and like, I mean, get going on that. So I think having a team really helps, especially, let's actually your project takes off, you definitely need a team, right? So having that,
Mhm.
multiple core members in your project, that helps. So I mean, take advantage of being in school.
Yeah, especially like to be honest, like you also have so many other advantages. Like I said, if you're in school, it means you're very young. It means you don't need
Yep.
much money. You're living at home. You have a lot of time. Like as soon as you have girlfriend, wife, children, your time's gonna get minimized a lot. And you have like you can work like I'm the most efficient between probably 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. I can never work my most efficient times ever. I have to work early on where I'm super inefficient, but you're not a tree anymore. So definitely make sure when you're at school, use the time, build cool stuff. Then, yeah, this is really a huge advantage. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Cool. Guys,
Cool.
Jan, I know we sort of close the time, but I really enjoy the conversation. Thanks for,
That was a
like,
great time. Thanks.
yeah, I had a blast actually. I mean, your journey is really interesting. I think Annette gonna be one of the. I mean, like, just like we're talking about, Elasticsearch right now. I think in 5 years, only people gonna talk about, hey, Annette, and that is actually the reference for us, right? So I think we
I
wish
agree.
more and more projects gonna join open source. More and more people gonna build out stuff on open source, and I think this is a fantastic place to, I mean, and thanks for the time for that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thanks again for inviting. I had a great time, and I hope it was helpful for somebody out there.
All
And
right,
take care.
take care, bye,
Thank you.
guys, take
Ciao.
care.
Bye.
All right, bye, ciao.
Bye.